office, and that's a total ceasefire. Ukraine has agreed to it, and hopefully Russia will agree to it.
The Russia-Ukraine conflict has taken an unexpected turn after high-level talks between Ukraine and the United States in Saudi Arabia. Tensions flared at the White House when Presidents Trump and Zelenskyy had a heated exchange, with Zelenskyy appearing determined to keep fighting. But now, in a surprising shift, the Ukrainian president has agreed to a ceasefire. The question is, will Russia agree to the ceasefire? Let's get into it. Chapter 1. The recap. The meeting in Saudi Arabia follows a heated exchange between Trump, Zelenskyy, and Vice President J.D. Vance, who accused Zelenskyy of being ungrateful for the support the United States has advanced to Ukraine.
October, offer some words of appreciation for the United States of America and the president who's trying to save your country.
Please, you think that if you will speak very loudly about the war, you can...
He's not speaking loudly. He's not speaking loudly. Your country's in big trouble.
Can I
Wait
answer?
a minute. No, you've done a lot of talking. Your country is in big trouble.
I know.
You're not winning.
I know.
You're not winning this. You have a damn good chance of coming out okay because of us.
Mr. President, we are staying in our country, staying strong from the very beginning of the war. We've been alone, and we are thankful. I said thanks
you haven't
in
been
this
alone.
cabinet,
You
and
haven't
not
been
only
alone.
in this cabinet.
We gave you, through
I
this
said
stupid president, $350 billion.
You voted
we gave
for
you
your
military equipment,
You
and your
voted
men
for
are
your
brave,
president.
but they had to use our military.
What about
if you didn't have our military equipment, if you didn't have our military equipment, this war would have been over in 2 weeks.
In 3 days, I heard it from Putin. In 3 days. This is something
maybe
new.
less.
In 2 weeks, of course, yes.
It's going to be a very hard thing to do business like this, I tell you.
He had visited the White House to sign a minerals deal, but left without signing. Later, he expressed regret and reaffirmed his commitment to peace. And that brings us to the meeting in Saudi Arabia. Now, it is important to note that although Zelenskyy was in Saudi Arabia, he did not participate in the actual meeting. Instead, he met with the Saudi Crown Prince, Mohammed bin Salman. The meeting with the prince touched on a broad range of matters, including key investment sectors such as energy, security, and infrastructure. Zelenskyy also expressed gratitude to the Crown Prince for what he termed as his wise perspective on the international situation and Saudi Arabia's support for Ukraine. And that brings us to the meeting in Saudi Arabia. Chapter 2. The Saudi Meeting. Now, on March 11th, the world's attention turned to Jeddah, Saudi Arabia, where Ukrainian and U.S. delegates gathered for a fresh round of talks. Their goal? To smooth over the differences that sparked the dramatic standoff between Trump and Zelenskyy at the White House. The American delegation was headed by Secretary of State Marco Rubio and National Security Advisor Mike Waltz. The Ukrainian side was led by Zelenskyy's Chief of Staff, Andriy Yermak, Foreign Minister Andriy Sybiha, Defense Minister Rustem Umerov, and Zelenskyy's Deputy Chief of Staff, Pavlo Palisa. Heading into the meeting, one thing was certain. One thing was clear. Its outcome would have a major impact on Washington's future support for Kyiv and any subsequent efforts aimed at ending the Russian-Ukraine conflict. According to Secretary Rubio, the meeting was also intended to get more details on the possible concessions that Ukraine might be willing to make in a possible peace deal.
We have to understand the Ukrainian position and just have a general idea of what concessions they'd be willing to make.
Although Rubio did not specify the kind of concessions he was referring to, it is thought that he was talking about the possibility of Ukraine giving up some of its territory. This is a proposal that has also been put on the table by President Trump previously, and therefore could be part of the agenda of the Saudi meeting. Now it has emerged that the delegates from the two countries made serious headway compared to the first meeting between the presidents of the two countries. First, the pressing matter of a guarantee of future military support was ironed out. Waltz confirmed this by stating that they had discussed the kinds of guarantees that the United States would commit to as part of the deal. However, the part of the meeting that has caught the world's attention is Ukraine's commitment to accept a proposal by the United States for an immediate interim 30-day ceasefire. The proposal further states that this ceasefire can be extended by mutual agreement of the parties.
Today, we made an offer that the Ukrainians have accepted, which is to enter into a ceasefire and into immediate negotiations to end this conflict in a way that's...
However, geopolitical analysts were quick to point out the unusual nature of this agreement, as it stated that it is subject to agreement by Russia. You see, normally, ceasefire deals are usually struck between conflicting parties, not between one party in a conflict and another party attempting to mediate peace, as is the case with this situation. However, there's no denying that this is a significant step toward achieving lasting peace in Ukraine. So, what does Ukraine get in return for agreeing to Washington's proposal?
Forward, the president has decided to lift the pause on aid and on our security assistance to Ukraine.
Following the positive outcome of the meeting, President Trump announced that the United States would immediately lift the pause on military support and intelligence sharing to Ukraine. This was a much-needed relief, especially for Ukraine. In the last few days, the country has faced intensified attacks from Russia after Trump decided to pause military aid to Kyiv following his dramatic standoff with Zelenskyy at the White House. Secretary Rubio emphasized that the next step is for the United States to clearly communicate to Russia that its cooperation is essential for achieving much-needed peace in Ukraine.
We're going to bring it to them directly. We're going to say that Ukraine is prepared to stop all battlefield activity and begin the immediate process of negotiating.
This is to mean that the ball is entirely on Moscow's court. Its answer will be the deciding factor. Will it open the door to real progress? Or will the United States have to ramp up its diplomatic efforts to get both sides to the negotiating table? Let us know your thoughts about this, and also remember to subscribe to Turbulent Times, as we will definitely update you once Russia responds to the proposal by the United States. Moreover, the two sides discussed the minerals deal that is yet to be signed, and which many see as the trigger for the shouting match that the world witnessed at the White House.
The president, our respective presidents, have instructed the appropriate members of their governments to bring this to finality and to...
In a joint statement, the two countries confirmed that their presidents had come to an agreement to work on this deal and get it signed as soon as possible. Once again, the United States emphasized that its presence in Ukraine through the minerals deal is more than just an economic endeavor. Instead, it stands as a strong deterrent against Russian aggression and a vital step toward lasting peace in the region. The delegations went on to discuss the need for more humanitarian relief efforts as part of the peace process. Particularly, they touched on the possibility of Russia and Ukraine exchanging prisoners of war, the release of civilian detainees, as well as the return of Ukrainian children that were forcibly transferred to areas under the control of Russia. Chapter 3. Leaders' Reactions. Of course, this meeting is a top priority for world leaders, and they have been vocal about their thoughts on the outcome. Starting with President Zelenskyy himself.
The American side understands our arguments, perceives our proposals, and I want to thank President Trump for the constructive conversation between our teams.
In a complete turn of tone, President Zelenskyy hailed the United States for what he termed as understanding Ukraine's arguments. He also expressed his gratitude to Washington for the constructive conversations between the delegations of the two countries. However, despite agreeing to the deal, Zelenskyy restated that the effectiveness of this ceasefire purely lies in the hands of Russia. He stated that if the Russians agree to the deal, the silence, meaning a stop of war activities, will take effect at that very moment. In Washington, President Trump also commented about the ceasefire deal.
Agree to it, and hopefully Russia will agree to it. We're going to meet with them later on today and tomorrow, and hopefully we'll be able to wipe out a deal.
Speaking at the White House, Trump expressed optimism and even confirmed that a team of officials from the United States was on its way to Moscow to meet with President Vladimir Putin and brief him on the details of the proposed deal. However, Trump was swift to remind Russia that he could still target the country financially if it did not agree to support the 30-day ceasefire. On what this might mean, the president hinted at sanctions and strengthening Ukraine, perhaps through providing more military equipment, training, and funding.
But in a financial sense, yeah, we could do things very bad for Russia. It would be devastating for...
However, he reaffirmed that he does not want to go down that road as he is pursuing peace. On its side, the European Union also hailed the outcomes of these talks. Taking to her X account, European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen shared the Union's stance on the developments. She welcomed the ceasefire proposal and the renewed commitment by the United States to intelligence sharing and security assistance for Ukraine. She reiterated Secretary Rubio's statement that the ball is now in Russia's court. Her statement was echoed by President of the European Council Antonio Costa, who also reiterated that the European Union is ready to play its part in the upcoming peace negotiations. Now, Russia is yet to officially respond to these developments. However, it has given a hint of what its final answer might be.
So, the idea in itself is correct and we support it, but there are questions that need to be discussed.
As it stands, Russia needs answers to some tough questions it has raised. It still remains to be seen whether it will still agree to the ceasefire if these questions are not answered. For now, the ball is really in Russia's court, as Secretary Rubio and the European Union have put it. The effectiveness of this deal solely relies on the decision Kremlin makes and whether it really wants to negotiate with Ukraine for sustainable peace in the region. What do you think? Will Russia agree to the ceasefire proposal by the United States, or are we bound to see yet another stalemate in this conflict? Let us know your thoughts in the comments section below, and stay tuned to Turbulent Times for more updates on this issue.